Today we are at the East Mole Jetty by Dunkirk, and today we're going to tell the story of some of the boats that were involved in the successful rescue of more than 338,000 troops. So in our previous video we talked about the evacuation of Dunkirk, the successful evacuation of more than 338,000 troops from this jetty and Dunkirk beach right next to me. Well, that operation would not have been possible without an awful lot of boats, and so I wanted to do a story that just talks about those boats. So when I was thinking about how to tell the story of the boats here at Dunkirk, I mean, there were hundreds of boats involved here in the evacuation attempts, and I couldn't possibly tell the story of all of them. So what I've decided to do, and I hope you guys enjoy the kind of way I put this video together, is I've just decided to tell the story of a few of the key boats involved. And that's what we're going to do. Got a few big boats, a few small boats, and something in between, and one really cool place that we're going to visit. So make sure you stick around to the end of the video. And I wanted to start off by telling the story of a couple of the larger ships that were involved right here at the East Mole Jetty, offloading troops, or onloading troops I should say, to evacuate them off the beaches of Dunkirk. And the first boat we're going to tell the story of is the HMS Grenade. So the HMS Grenade was one of the large destroyers collecting troops here at Dunkirk. Now, at the start of the operation, it was involved further north in the English Channel, protecting the waters and the safe passage. And then the ship came here to Dunkirk itself and docked here on the East Jetty in the night between the 28th and 29th of May. Now, unfortunately, whilst in the dock here, the ship came under attack by two German Stuka dive bombers. That set the ship alight. It killed 14 of the sailors on board and mortally wounded another 4 men. Now, the ship here was unsavable. Now, the people overseeing the deck here, or the dock, they knew that if that ship stayed tied to the side of the dock, set fire and sunk, it would block access for other ships to be able to come in and rescue more of the men. So sadly, it had to be cut adrift, and it drifted out west into the west side of the harbour, kind of over in sort of this direction, at which point its magazines for its ammunition set fire, and the boat maybe not exploded, but the boat was then beyond repair and sunk out there in the west side of the harbour. So that's the story of the HMS Grenade. So the next boat we're going to tell the story of is another boat that was involved right here at the dock, and that is the HMS Wakeful. Now, the HMS Wakeful is a ship that was actually used in World War I and World War II. And in World War II, it came here to Dunkirk in an attempt to rescue troops right here from the jetty. On the 27th of May, the Wakeful embarked 640 troops. It then set sail from here at the dock in an attempt to take them back across the English Channel. Now, unfortunately, on the 28th of May, as it got out into deeper waters, the Wakeful came under attack by 2 German U-boats. The ship was hit by 2 torpedoes and was sunk in the waters out there off the coast here at Dunkirk. Now, the casualties were heavy. Of the 640 troops who had got onto that ship, only 4 of them survived, along with 25 of the Wakeful's crew. Now, the wreck of the HMS Wakeful actually sits in the water, and it is a designated war grave. It sits about 24 metres under water level, and it is kind of sitting out in the sea, kind of just outside the next harbour along from here. So it was used here at Dunkirk, but by the time it got out into the water and was sunk, it is further along the coast. But it sits underwater 24 metres down as a designated war grave for those soldiers, a lot of whom obviously still lay to rest in that ship at the bottom of the sea today. Now, of course, the stories of the bigger ships here at the jetty is only half of the story at Dunkirk. Fairly early on in the operation, it became apparent that there was just simply not enough space along the East Mole here for there to be enough troops evacuated. So for that, they needed to bring in more bigger ships. The problem was that the shallow waters here along the Dunkirk beach were not suitable for being able to load troops. So it very quickly became apparent that they would need a lot of smaller boats to be able to get into these shallow waters to then ferry the men out to the larger ships. On the 27th of May, the small craft section of the British Ministry of Shipping got in touch with boat owners all around the southern parts of England, asking them to collect any smaller boats with a shallow draft, meaning capable of moving into shallow waters. Now, a lot of those boats were voluntarily handed over by their owners. Some were kind of commandeered and taken without the owner's consent at the time. Now, the story is, of course, that some of those boats were actually sailed over here by the owners themselves, and that's true, that did happen. Some fishermen and people like that who were more confident out in the deeper waters did bring their own ships over here. In reality, that story is probably exaggerated a bit when you see movies like Dunkirk. A lot of those ships were taken, and then, you know, a member of the Navy, a captain from the Navy, would then command that ship and bring it over here to France for the evacuation. But nonetheless, there were still some private boat owners who bought those boats over here themselves and participated in the evacuations here at Dunkirk. So those little ships would participate in the mission of evacuating troops from the beach here behind me out to the larger ships, out further in the water that could not get close enough into the beach. Now, those little boats would go on to be called the Little Ships of Dunkirk, and in fact there is still a Little Ships of Dunkirk association now. I'm going to see if I can find a link to it, and I'll put it in the description below if you want to check it out. Right, we're going to go further on the beach now for one more cool sight with the story of the boats of Dunkirk. Let's go. Now, there is one place about midway along the beach here at Dunkirk where you can actually see the wreckage of one of the ships that sank here. Now, we're heading out to that spot right now. I hope you guys can hear me because it is windy out here. You can see I'm right the way down the beach now, so further along to kind of the sort of the eastern side of Dunkirk Beach. You can see it really does open up right here. Now, it's low tide. You have to come out here at low tide if you want to have a chance of seeing this wreckage, because at high tide, or in fact anything other than kind of low tide, it is underwater. But this is the wreck of the Crested Eagle. The Crested Eagle was one of the first oil-burning paddlers on the River Thames. It used to ferry passengers from just near London Bridge down the River Thames towards Margate. At the outbreak of World War II in 1939, the Crested Eagle was one of the ships that was tasked with evacuating children out of London to safety as part of the process of trying to protect the children from the Blitz. That was the German bombing of London. Now, like many other ships, the Crested Eagle was brought in to help evacuate troops from Dunkirk, and on the 29th of May 1940, captained by Lieutenant Commander Bernard Booth, the Crested Eagle set sail from Sheerness to the East Mole at Dunkirk. Now, whilst it was docked there on the east side of the mole, on the west side of the mole, a couple of ships, one of which we talked about earlier, the HMS Grenade, along with another ship called the Fenella, were hit by German bombs. Survivors of both of those boats disembarked and then boarded the Crested Eagle. And the Crested Eagle set sail with about 600 troops from the East Mole at Dunkirk, which you can see is just down the other end of the beach here behind me. That's where we were just a little while ago. Now, unfortunately, the Crested Eagle only got about a mile from East Mole Dock when it too was hit by German bombs. The ship was on fire, and the captain was advised by one of his engineers that it was not going to make it. It was going to be sinking soon. So he ordered for the ship to be beached, and that was to happen right here, just down from Dunkirk at Zuiderkoop Beach. Now, fortunately, there were about 200 men who survived that fire and the sinking or the beaching of the ship here on the beach. Unfortunately, though, there were about another 300 men who didn't survive that incident and were killed here at Dunkirk. So here we have it. This is the wreckage of the Crested Eagle. Now, it sits here. Now, as I said, I've had to cross a lot of water to get here, so just a quick safety thing. If anyone's going to come out here, please plan this ahead, right? Because I am quite far out. You can see like where the back of the beach is behind me. And if you're going to come out here, make sure you plan it, because that tide is already coming in pretty quick. So I'm only going to probably have 5-10 minutes here before I have to start going back. So please be careful if you do come out here. But look, here's the wreckage. It sits out here on the beach or underwater in higher tide, and you can see they've got these like yellow kind of buoys or buoys, however you want to say it, around, so when the water is above it, kind of boats that are in these shallow waters don't crash into it, and people maybe don't swim into it. Although I don't think you'd fancy swimming out here today, because it is cold. But here's the wreck of the Crested Eagle. This really is fascinating. They have a plaque over here. Let's go check it out. So the plaque just tells the story really of HMS Crested Eagle, as I've already said, and worth a note, I suppose. We've said Dunkirk Beach. Actually, technically, this piece is down, and I apologise for locals if I say this wrong. I think this is Zuiderkoop Beach, Zuiderkoop Beach, which is further on. It's all part of one beachhead, so. All the way down, if you can see, kind of down behind me is Dunkirk Beach, and that runs up and then at some point turns into Zuiderkoop Beach, which is where we are right now. And I'm sure I've massacred that name, and I'm so sorry for anyone who knows how to say it correctly. But wow, fascinating. Right, I think I need to start heading back before this tide comes in too much and I get wet. Okay, so I've come up to take some shelter right here at the back of the beach, because oh my goodness, it is windy. I tell you what, this whole morning here at Dunkirk has been cold and windy, and it makes you think even more so of the stuff that the men who are waiting on these beaches to be rescued went through. But there you go, that's the story of some of the boats of Dunkirk. Now, it's important to mention that there were hundreds of boats here involved at Dunkirk, and when I thought about how to do this video, I couldn't possibly get through all of them, and so I just decided to tell the stories of some of the key ones, and certainly some of the ones that we could share a good story or some information with you. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already, and stick around for the next video. Guys, thank you very much for watching.